वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततः जयम् उदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्ति भवती नैष्ठिकी। हरे कृष्ण, दंडवत प्रणाम। श्रीमद् भागवतम कैंटो 11 chapter 13, the Hounds Avatar answers questions. From shloka number 9 to 23. Sri Bhagavan uvacha aham iti अन्यथा बुद्धि प्रमत्तस्य यथा हृदि उत्सर्पति रजः घोरम ततः वैकारिकं मनः। रजः युक्तस्य मनसः संकल्प सविकल्पकः ततः काम गुण ध्यानात् दुस्सहस्रात् अधि दुर्मते साथी दुर्मते। करोति काम वशगः कर्माणि अविजित इंद्रियः दुःख दुःख उदरकाणि संपश्यन् रजः वेग विमोहितः। रजः तमोभ्यां यत् अपि विद्वान् विक्षिप्तधीः पुनः अतन्द्रितः मनः युञ्जन् दोष दृष्टि न सज्जते। अप्रमत्त अनुयुज्यित मनः मयि अर्पयत् शनैः अनिर्विण्ण यथा कालं जित श्वास जित आसनः। एतावान् योग आदिष्टः मत्शिष्यैः सनक आदिभिः सर्वतमन आकृष्य मयि अध्यावेश्यते यथा।
Is it legible, Mataji, now? You are not audible, Mataji. Mataji, you are mute. Mataji, from 17. Huh.
I am reading 17 shloka. Sanaka adaya uchuhu guneshu avishate cheta गुणः चेतस चेतसि च प्रभो कथम अन्योन संत्याग मुमुक्षो अतितीर्षो भगवान उवाच एवं पृष्ठ महादेव स्वयं भूभूत भावनः ध्यायमान प्रश्न बीजम न अव्यपद्यत कर्मधिः स मां चिन्तयेत् देवः प्रश्न पार तितीर्षया तस्य अगमं रूपवृद्ध ब्रह्मांडम् अग्रतः कृत्वा पप्रच्छुः क भवान् इति। मुनिभिः पृष्टः तत्त्वजिज्ञासुभिः तथा यत् अवोचम् अहं तेभ्यः तत् उद्धव निबोध मे वस्तुनः यदि अनानात्वे आत्मना प्रश्न ईदृशः कथम घटेत वह विप्रा वक्तुः वः मे क आश्रयः पंचात्मकेषु भूतेषु समानेषु च वस्तुतः कः भवान् इति वह प्रश्नः वाचा आरंभ ही अनर्थक. ट्रांसलेशन एंड पर्पट बाय द श्रीला प्रभुपद. जगत गुरु श्रीला प्रभुपद की जय.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Mataji, you are not audible again.
The cause of death is in making and changing many plans for material advancement. Thus, by constantly thinking of the modes of material nature, a foolish person is afflicted with unbearable material desires. One who does not control the material senses comes under the control of material desires and is thus bewildered by the strong waves of the mode of passion. Such a person executes material activities, although clearly seeing that the result will be future unhappiness. Although the intelligence of a learned person may be bewildered by the modes of passion and ignorance, he should bring the mind under control by clearly seeing the contamination of the modes of nature. He does not become attached. A person should be attentive and grave and never lazy or morose. Mastering procedures of breathing and sitting properly, one should practice fixing on me at dawn, noon, and sunset, and thus gradually the mind should be completely absorbed in it. The actual yoga system, as taught by my devotees, headed by Salak Kumara, is simply this: having withdrawn the mind from all other objects, one should directly or appropriately absorb it in me.
May I read, Mataji?
Sri Uddhav, ahead you speak. I shloka and translation and purport read, then after you read. Srila Uddhava said, my dear Keshava, at what time and in what form did you instruct the science of yoga to Sanak and his brother? I now desire to know about these things. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, once the mental sons of Lord Brahma, namely the sages headed by Sanaka, inquired from their father about the difficult subject matter of the supreme goal of yoga. The sages headed by Sanaka said, O Lord, people's mind are naturally attracted to material sense objects, and similarly, the sense objects in the form of desire enter within the mind. Therefore, how can a person who desires liberation, who desires to cross over activities of sense gratification, destroy this mutual relationship between the sense object and the mind? Please explain this to us. back. My dear Uddhava, the sages, 1 minute. Sages, being eager to understand the ultimate truth of the yoga system, thus inquired from me. Now, please hear as I explained that which I spoke unto the sages. My dear Brahmanas, if when asking me who I am, you believe that I am also a Jewish soul and that there is no ultimate difference between us, since all souls are ultimately one without individuality, then how is your question possible or appropriate? Ultimately, what is the real situation or resting place both of yourself and of me? If by asking me, who are you, you referring to the material body, then I must point out that all material bodies are constituted of 5 elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Thus, you should have asked, who are, if you consider that all material bodies are ultimately essentially of the same elements, then your question is still meaningless, since there would be no deep purpose in distinguishing one body from another. Thus, it appears that in asking my identity, you are merely speaking words without any real meanings of or purpose. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Those who are trying to enjoy material sense gratification are not actually intelligent, although they consider themselves most intelligent. Although such foolish persons themselves criticize the miseries of material life in innumerable books, songs, newspapers, television programs, civic committees, etc. They cannot desist from material life for a single moment. The process by which one is helplessly bound in illusion is clearly described here. A materialistic person is always thinking, oh, what a beautiful house. I wish we could buy it. Or, what a beautiful woman. I wish I could touch her. Or, what a powerful position. I wish I could occupy it. And so on. The word sankalpa, sa vikalpa indicate that a materialistic is always making new, new plans or modifying his old plan to increase his material enjoyment, although in his saner moments he admits that material life is full of suffering. The mind is created from the mode of goodness as described in Sankhya philosophy, and the natural peaceful situation of the mind is pure love of Krishna, in which there is no mental disturbance, disappointment, or confusion. Artificially, the mind is dragged down to a lower platform in passion or ignorance, and thus one is never satisfied. The word yatha, according to accordingly or properly, indicates that, like Uddhava, one should hear directly from Lord Krishna or his bona fide representative and directly adha, fix the mind in Lord Krishna. As described above, as long as one is a conditioned soul, the modes of material nature manifested in the form of sense objects constantly disturb the mind, and by their harassment, one is deprived of actual perfection of life. Srila Jiva Goswami has quoted 3 verses from the second canto of Srimad Bhagwatam as following. In the 9th canto and 9th chapter, verse 32, Lord Krishna blessed Brahma with realized knowledge of the Lord's actual form, qualities, and activities. In the 9th chapter, verse 37, the Lord ordered Brahma to rigidly carry out the Lord's injunctions and affirmed that Brahma would thus never be bewildered in its cosmic decision making. In the 6th chapter, verse 34, Lord Brahma assured his son Narada, O Narada, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, with great zeal, whatever I say has never proved to have been false, nor is the progress of mind ever deterred, and nor are my senses are degraded by temporary attachment to matter. In the present verse, in this 13th chapter of the 11th canto, Lord Krishna said that Brahma unfortunately did become bewildered by his creative function, thus providing a grave lesson to all of the Lord's empowered representatives. Although one may be elevated to an exalted position in the Lord's transcendental service, at any moment there is danger of false pride polluting one's devotional mentality. Horns means swan, and the specific ability of the swan is to separate a mixture of milk and water, extracting the rich milky portion. Similarly, Lord Krishna appeared as Hansa or the swan in order to separate the pure consciousness of the Lord Brahma from the mode of material nature. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments, when Brahma was unable to answer the question placed by the sages, he mixed his mind in thought of the Supreme Lord. The Lord then assumed, he fixed his mind in thought of the Supreme Lord. The Lord then assumed the form of Hamsa and appeared before Lord Brahma and the sages, who proceeded to inquire about the specific identity of the Lord. Ashray means the resting place or shelter. Lord Krishna's question, what is our actual resting place or shelter, means what is our ultimate nature or constitutional position. This is because no one can come to rest or be satisfied unless one is in one's original and natural position. The example is given that one may travel all over the world, but ultimately one becomes satisfied by returning to one's own home. Similarly, a crying child is satisfied when embraced by its own mother. By inquiring about the shelter or resting place of himself and the Brahmanas, the Lord is indicating the eternal constitutional position of every living entity. If Lord Krishna were also in the Jiva category, and if all living entities include him were the equal, there would be no deep purpose in one living entity inquiring and another answering. Only one who is in superior position can meaningfully answer important questions. It may be argued that the bona fide spiritual master answers all the questions of the disciple, and yet the guru is in the jiva category. The answer is that The bona fide spiritual master speaks not on his own behalf, but as a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is in the Vishnu category. A so-called guru speaking on his own behalf as a jiva soul is useless and is unable to meaningfully answer serious questions. Thus, the sages question, Ko Kah Bhavan, who are you? Indicates that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is eternally an individual person. And because the sages headed by Lord Brahma offered obeisance and worshipped the Lord, it is understood that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, uh, Lord Brahma, as the first created being in this universe, could not accept any other living entity except the Lord as worshipable. Lord Krishna's actual purpose is to explain the ultimate perfection of yoga, which the sages were desiring to know. If one becomes fixed in transcendental knowledge, the mutual attraction between the material mind and the material sense objects automatically ceases. The spiritual mind is not attracted to material objects of gratification, and thus by spiritualizing the mind, material existence automatically slackens. By questioning the property of the sages question, the Lord is assuming the position of the spiritual master and preparing to give valuable instruction. One should never be envious of a bona fide spiritual master, especially if, as in the case of Lord Hansa speaking to the sages headed by Brahma and Sanak Kumara, the Guru is the supreme personality of God himself. Sri Laju Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains this verse as follows. In the previous verse, Lord Krishna demonstrated that if the sages accepted the impersonal philosophy that all living beings are ultimately one in all respect, their question, who are you, was meaningless, since there would be no philosophical basis to distinguish one manifestation of spirit soul from another. In this verse, the Lord refutes the false identification with the material body composed of 5 elements. If the sages accepted the body as the self, then their questions was meaningless, since they would have to ask, who are you 5? If the sages replied that although the body is composed basically of 5 elements, and these elements can be considered a single substance in the form of the whole body, then the Lord has already replied by the words Samaneshu Cha Vastutah, the bodies of human beings, demigods, animals, etc., are all composed of the same 5 elements and essentially the same. Therefore, the question, who are you, is ultimately meaningless. Thus, if one accepts either the theory that all living entities are ultimately the same or the theory that all living entities are ultimately non-different from their material bodies, in both cases, the question of the sages is meaningless. The sages might argue that even among learned persons, it is common practice to ask questions and give answers on many subjects as a part of normal life. The sages could point out that Lord Krishna also distinguished among them by his saying Vipra, O Brahmanas, and Va, or your question as expressed in this verse. In this way, it is seen that the Lord also accepts the ordinary customs of questions and answer. To answer this argument, Lord Krishna said, Vacha Arambo he anarthaka. The Lord states, my addressing you as Brahmana is merely an exhibition of words. If we are ultimately non different, I merely reciprocated with your approach to me. Therefore, if we are ultimately one, neither my statement nor your question has any real meaning. I can conclude, therefore, by your question to me that you are all not actually very intelligent. Therefore, why are you inquiring after ultimate knowledge? Aren't you all embarrassed? Srila Madhvacharya points out in this regard that the question of the sages was not appropriate, since they had already seen their father, Lord Brahma, worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord Hamsa, since their spiritual master and father was worshipping Lord Hamsa, then they should have immediately understood the Lord's position, and their question is thus meaningless. Now prayers, thus end the purpose now prayers. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Ena Tasmai Sri Gurave Nama Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guroho Sri Yuttapada Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavancha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sahadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitancha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashchato Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubecha Krupa Sindhube Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavranda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Dandat Pranam. Well, we now Srimad Bhagwatam Canto 11 Chapter 13 Hounds Avtaras answers question, means the sons of the Brahmas headed by Sanak Kumara, they asking some question to the Lord, who is in the incarnation as Hansa Avtara, and what uh, Hans incarnating Hans Avtara, what answers giving those questions. These answers and questions are describing in this chapter. So Prabhuji will tell you in detail what's important question. They understand Jiva and God are different or same. How their question is meaningless or not meaningless, which understanding from Prabhuji's. Vancha kalpatarubhecha kripa sindhubhe evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jai Sri Krishna Namo Namah. Vancha kalpatarubhecha kripa sindhubhe evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So finally, the Hans has appeared, which is what this whole chapter is all about. And we were eagerly waiting for this very different avtara or incarnation of Lord Krishna. Bhagwan Shri Krishna ki jai. Hans avatar ki jai. So yesterday we have seen how Uddhava has raised a question that if the future is unhappiness, why do we still try to enjoy material life? How can someone in knowledge act like a dog or an ass or a goat? This is a very intelligent question which Krishna took and has given us very practical information. First of all, if you are bereft of knowledge or intelligence, then what happens is we identify ourselves with this material body, and such false knowledge which is arising in our consciousness, it increases the material passion. Material passion is cause of great suffering. Great suffering pervades the mind, and then something which was in goodness gets polluted. So the mind becomes contaminated by passion, becomes absorbed in making, changing plans, and slowly, because of thinking of these modes of material nature, become afflicted with unbearable material desires. So, if one is not able to control the material senses, then we come under the control of material desire because of mode of passion. And then anyone who is afflicted by this, he keeps on doing material activities continuously. And we don't think that yes, there is going to be an happiness. What an happiness? Am I saying it right now? No. So I'll try. And the whole intelligence gets bewildered. So Krishna tells us that first and foremost, we have to get our mind under control. Because if we are able to clearly see the contamination of the modes of nature, then we will not become attached. So we should be attentive, grave. We should not be lazy or morose. Maybe mastering the yoga procedures, breathing techniques, proper sitting, we can fix the mind on Krishna throughout the day, especially dawn, noon, and sunset. And then the mind will gradually be absorbed in Krishna. Now, Sanak Kumaras, they also taught a yoga system. What they have said is, you withdraw the mind from all other objects and directly and appropriately absorb in Krishna. As soon as Uddhava heard something like this, the question came, what time, which form you instructed the science of yoga to Shanaka? And he asked, I wish to know. And then Krishna is telling this story wherein he's talking about this Hansa avatar. Now, these Sanak Kumaras, they were born out of the mind of Lord Brahma. You all know this story very well. And they inquired from their father, that is Lord Brahma, about the supreme goal of yoga. They wanted to understand that people's mind are naturally attracted to material sense objects because that is what Maya is doing. And similarly, the sense objects in the form of desire enter with the mind. So see, it's a two-way traffic. So how can a person who wants to be liberated, who wants to cross over the activities of sense gratification, what can he do? That is what they asked. Brahma, Brahma is also, he is not born out of anyone's womb. He came directly from the Lord's navel. Right? Pankaja Nabhaya. That is why we call Krishna as Pankaja Nabhaya. So Brahmaji is someone who is creating all the living entities, including demigods. Now, when this question was asked, he was thinking, what do I answer? Because he himself was affected by his own activities of creation. So he could not find what is the right answer. but he wanted to get the right answer. And so he was also getting puzzled. And so he fixed his mind on Krishna. And then Krishna came in the form of Hamsa. So the Sanat Kumaras, all the all the six Kumaras, they came forward, they worshipped the lotus feet of Krishna, and they wanted to inquire, who are you? Now, basically, they wanted to understand the ultimate truth of yoga system. And so they inquired, who are you? And immediately, Krishna, in the form of Hamsa, tells, when asking me who I am, you believe that I am also a soul, and there is no difference between us because all souls are one. So, how is your question possible? So, the real question should be, what is the real situation or resting place? Because by asking who are you, the Kumaras were referring to the material body, the Hansa. But then that material body is constituted of the Panchamahabhut. So ideally, they should have asked, who are you, Panchamahabhutas? So Krishna is now giving this basic understanding that the body is different from the soul. Because if everyone was a body, then everyone is made of the Panchamahabhutas, so there would not be any difference. There would not be anything which will distinguish one from the other. So immediately Krishna has refuted the question, saying that your words like this, who are you? Then such words are without any purpose or real meaning. Now, why such things? Because the Brahmanas had already seen Lord Brahma worshipping the lotus feet of Hamsa. Now, if our spiritual master, our father, is worshipping someone, then immediately they should have understood that Brahmaji can worship only the Lord. So the question was meaningless. So this is how now Krishna is, as usual, going to play with the words, but give the essence of life. We shall continue discussions tomorrow on.